All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am so excited to once again have a repeat offender here with Sara Murray. Thanks for being here today, Sara.
Damon, I'm so happy to be back on the Faces of Business. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's going to be fun because today we're going to be talking about how to sell a business model rather than a product. Sara, you're the first person that brought this concept up to me, and I'm so glad we can talk about it today.
I can't wait. It's something I'm really passionate about. I think it's something a lot of people don't know how to do. And even if they know how to do it, we forget and we just go into our product, blah, blah, blah. You know, I call it product vomit. So today I'd love to talk about how to not puke on our customers.
That product vomit. First time I heard you say that, I was like, that is so funny. And I am so guilty of it.
It happens everywhere. I went into, I like to ride a bicycle and I'm toying around with getting a road bike, but it's like a hobby I've never done before. So I don't know a lot about it. And I walk into a bike store the other day in my neighborhood and I told the guy, I said, I'm not here to buy. I just have a couple quick questions. This is sort of a beginning of a fact-finding mission. And he immediately goes into, well, we're not based on commission. That's irrelevant because I just told you I wasn't here to buy anything. And then I got 30 minutes of just carbon versus aluminum versus blah, blah, blah versus blah, blah, blah. It's like, buddy, all I wanted to know is, can I put my feet on the ground when I ride a road bike and I stop pedaling? Like, that was my only question. And it was so bad. It just got to a point where I just shook the guy's hand and walked away because it's like, I can't keep hearing about these bicycles when I'm not asking any of these questions. It just happens to us all the time. And I would love, if I leave this earth at one point, hopefully years and years from now, we stop vomiting on people with product facts.
Yeah, that is a great example though, because I think salespeople for lack of better training, lack of something to say, sometimes they're or not remembering that questions should come first in every sales conversation, I think from a salesperson, but that's a great example. That's a great example.
It just happens all the time. And I think, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about it, but it's something where the more you're aware of it, the more you're going to start to see it.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. So Sara, let's start off like we like to do. Let's hear your background. How did you get into doing what you're doing, and then how you're helping people today?
Sure. Thanks for that, Damon. So my name is Sara Murray. I have a consulting firm really around business development, sales consulting. I'll work with different teams to really help them create an action plan, how to develop relationships, how to get to their client, and then how to execute. But my background has always been in sales roles. And I usually joke my first job ever was at a country club. And I worked at the country club for 6 years. And looking back, I think working at the country club helped teach me how to work with luxury clientele. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Damon, what was your first job?
Let's see. No, I was doing engineering work. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when you look back at, like, I know we're not going to go all the way back to 14 at the country club, but it does kind of lay these little breadcrumbs to how your career moves. And moved to Los Angeles after college, and I got a job in construction. And sometimes I kind of joke, I wasn't building, but on the sales side. So I was selling construction materials for luxury residences, multifamily residences, commercial buildings, hospitality projects. And so I had 3 different roles at 3 different global organizations leading their sales team. And I had one mentor. His name's Jamie Heil. I don't know if he's watching, but if he is, shout out to Jamie. Jamie really taught me the concept of selling to business model versus product. And it worked so well, I could always get to the decision maker because I could show how my product or service either made his business money or saved him money. And so that's one big line in the sand for anyone listening. You want to start to ask yourself, how does my product or service make my client money or save my client money? Because that's a much different conversation than here's all the information about my product that's just going to roll off your brain because nobody remembers it. Mm-hmm. So in all of my corporate jobs, some of the things that people would tell me, how are you this good at networking? How are you getting to the decision maker? How are you getting these meetings? And I just kind of sat with it and I said, I think I could teach people how to do this. And so that was sort of the part of the origin story of my consulting firm, which was founded in 2022. And so we just celebrated 3 years in business and things are going good.
Nice. So one of the things you've talked about before, and I love to just cover briefly, is the relationships, the long-term relationships you've built in sales, and how you continue to do that even with your clients today, but people from the past. How is that really, when you learned that, was it something you learned, or was it something that was always there, or you think you just have developed it with what you're doing now?
I think it's a combination of both. I think sometimes when we think about, like, my parents and my grandparents are amazing people. My grandparents are no longer with us, but my grandma was a stickler for the thank you card. And she was kind of like, if you don't write a card, you will never get a gift again. And all of her friends were terrified of Esther Mack because, did their grandkids write Esther a thank you card? Because grandma would cut them off, and I feel like, looking back, that was a really healthy habit that I learned, because I am just the queen of thank you cards, because it was beaten into me as a kid, for lack of a better word. A birthday gift if you don't do this thank you card. So, my parents are very thoughtful. They, when they pick you up from the airport, they have a water bottle and snacks or cookies, they're just thoughtful. And so I think I learned at a young age how to be thoughtful. But when it comes to business, one of the things that has served me really well, and what I teach in my workshops and I work with my clients on, is this concept of the emotional bank account. I'm sure you've heard that before, Damon, right? Mm-hmm. It's coined by Stephen Covey. I didn't make it up, but we practice this a lot, whether we know it or not. And in this concept of the emotional bank account, our relationship with other people has this kind of emotional deposits and withdrawals. So, Damon asks me to be on his show. That is, Damon has an emotional bank account deposit in my bank. So what you want to always be doing, I call it ABAV, always be adding value. Mm-hmm. And any type of situation, even if it's the valet guy at the corporate office building you're at, or the front desk person, or a random stranger on the street, you're almost thinking, how can I add value to the other person? And when you shift into that mindset, you're always filling the bank wherever you go. And I think that's something that serves you really well in business, because you never know whose bank account you're going to fill, who might actually be someone who can help you in your own further mission. So ABAV, always be adding value, is like the number one thing that really helps when you're trying to develop relationships.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it carries through all the way, no matter what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing sales or marketing or leadership, that concept helps you in all those areas. That's for sure. And in life.
And I think the key is this just has to be part of who you are. And that takes some practice, And so I like to say to people, like, practice with the barista at the coffee shop. You find ways to practice using their name, practice smiling, practicing thank you, practice writing reviews on their podcast, watch their LinkedIn lives. Like, there's all these different ways we can be giving these bank account deposits, because what I've found is the sales part becomes a lot easier once you have a full bank. Because why wouldn't that person work with Sara? She knows all about my family. She's invested in my well-being. It just becomes a lot more seamless and less salesy.
Yeah, agreed. So on your journey, let's talk a little bit about this selling a business model rather than a product. How did it first start clicking with you? I know you said your mentor helped you understand it, but how did it really start to click with you? And then how do you see people applying that today as you're teaching them and doing, but how did it really start clicking with you first?
It's a very straightforward story, but I used to sell, one of the products I sold in my career was a bioethanol fire pit. So picture a regular fire pit, but a stainless steel container that would hold bioethanol, which is like vodka or whiskey, it's ethanol, but it would burn really clean. So you could use it inside. You wouldn't need a vent. You didn't need a gas line, all this stuff. But when I'd be talking to a hotel owner or any type of decision maker, and you start getting into the product questions, What's the material? How hot does it get? What if my dog jumps into the fire? What is the fuel made of? Where do I get the fuel? What does the fuel cost? And you're just in this back and forth, like question, return answer, question, return answer. And number one, nobody's retaining those facts and figures. If I tell you, Damon, that this fireplace is 18,000 BTUs, you're going to forget that the second this session is over, right? Yeah. Nobody remembers facts and figures. And it just got to this point where the second they'd be asking these questions, then they'd be pulling out their calculator or their phone, doing the math on what this fire pit is going to cost them. I would lose the sale because all they would see is this thing's going to cost me money. So instead, if I can understand the decision maker's business model, and I'm going to use a hotel example here, but hey, Mr. Hotel owner, where are you considering fire on your property? Oh, the pool deck. Oh, okay. Because I know his business model. I'm thinking, do you happen to do events out at the pool? Oh yeah, all the time. We use the pool deck for events. Oh, great. One of the cool things about bioethanol is there's no hard gas line. So you can move this fire pit just like a piece of furniture and you get that fire pit off the property for your event. Ooh, okay. Now they're thinking that way. Then it's, let me ask you this too. What type of programming do you have on site for people to hang out and order drinks? Because this fire pit, really what I see with my other clients is it's a marketable amenity feature. You can advertise it on your website. You're giving people a place to gather. It's an extra light source. It adds romance and ambiance. It's an extra heat source, so we're talking about all these ways that this fire pit's going to add value to his business. Oh, and guess what, sir? Yeah, it's going to cost you $80 a night to operate, just like a propane one would. However, you're going to pay for that $80 in the first round of drinks from people sitting around this fire pit. They're going to hang out on property and spend their money with you. And now all of a sudden, this guy is thinking, this fire pit's going to make me money versus cost me money. And just asking those questions and understanding what happens on a hotel property or what he or she cares about, that shift changes all the conversations. And you get in the room with people because you understand their business and you're showing them how your product or service helps serve their business.
And then compare that to someone else that's coming in there and talking about the product and features and maybe benefits and some other things about it. They really are not equating that into either, as you said before, it's going to make more money or help me make more money or save more money.
Yeah. Instead, they're just talking about it's made of concrete and it's available in these finishes and blah, 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 blah. Business people don't care. They really don't. Like the product doesn't matter. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I've learned is the actual widget and stuff, that will matter eventually down the road. But for the first couple of conversations, you're figuring out how you can solve their problems. And then we can get into the specifics if it's necessary. It might not even be necessary to get into the how. Most people don't care about the materiality or the price point or, what grade of stainless steel it is. They just care it's not going to rust next to the ocean, and so that's where you speak business model. But I think that it's something that takes a lot of practice, and it almost sometimes just requires you to ask your client, what is their business model? And so if you're going into a pitch or a meeting, you might say, hey, Damon, I understand, I think I have a pretty solid understanding of what Exit Your Way does and who you serve. But before we get into our discussion, would you mind sharing a little bit about your business model? What are you focusing on for the future? Like, where do you get your clients? Like, you can ask these questions. I think people are afraid to ask.
Yeah, that's great. Because when you start off like that, asking questions, first of all, I think is good. And then getting to know their business better is always helpful because then you can sell, and I shouldn't say sell, you can talk about the right things that will help them really achieve what they want to with your product or service.
Absolutely. And sometimes they end up selling it for you. They might say, actually, this could help us over here with this project we're working on. And it's like, great, let's double click on that.
Yeah.
So you're the guide. You're guiding the client towards a solution. But if you just come in and throw a product vomit all over them, you're just going to lose every time.
Yes. So in your helping others now use this, understand how to sell better, what are some of the common things that you run across now with salespeople that are really holding them back?
I think there's a big lack of fear around this concept of asking a prospect what their business model is. I think that there's a delicate balance between coming across confident and not wanting to ask questions because you fear that the prospect's going to think you don't know anything about their business.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to challenge anyone listening to think about, like, let's use a pharmaceutical sales rep, for example. You know, you're selling pharmaceutical meds to a surgeon or a doctor, someone who went to medical school for 13, 18 years,
Yeah.
go to school for a long time, you know, and so if I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep and I come to a surgeon and I act like I know everything about his job, like, of course I don't know everything about what it takes to be a surgeon. I'm not a surgeon. I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I think it's okay for people to understand your role in sales isn't to sell, but it's to solve problems. And I'm not an expert at your business. I think I know enough to be dangerous. I work with similar clients like yours, but I would love to hear from you. What is your business model? What type of clients do you work with? Who are your clients that you serve? And that's one area of just getting over the fear of asking, because most people won't bat an eye and they'll just go right into it. And it's a smarter way to run a meeting.
Yeah. And when they just start without asking those questions, it's said, you don't, as a salesperson, you don't get the background, the foundational knowledge to really address their main concerns. And asking about that business model, asking about what are the challenges that they're seeing now and those other things, which aren't always comfortable questions, but they do help you really understand. If I've got a product or service and I find somebody that says, this is exactly, you know, they're saying this thing that I exactly do together, it's very good for them.
Yeah. And it makes it a lot more organic to bring it up, because then you're using their own language back to them. Hey, Damon, you mentioned that this was a pain point for you. One feature you might be interested is, you know, the fact there's no hard gas line. So when you have events, you can clear the pool deck with this fire element that doesn't have a hard gas line. You weave in the product features and the product information in a way that serves the solution. And if we don't ask, we waste a lot of time. We waste the other person's energy, money on the table, and we do not position ourselves as a professional business person, really, to be that blunt.
Yeah, that's great. I really liked what you said there about showing them how the solution applies to their business model and how it can enhance it. That's great. So as you're helping people and they're getting this, what are some of the comments that you get back?
One of the things, well, I think one, like I'll give the listeners a little roadmap on how to do this, and then we'll talk a little bit about feedback.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that.
What I like to, especially in B2B, there's a lot of different people that might interact with your product, right?
Yeah.
You might sell an OEM component that you sell to the actual, you know, final manufacturer, but then where is that product being deployed or installed? And then even though maybe a hotel, and we'll just continue our hotel example, maybe the hotel is my client, but the guest is still going to interact with my product, or the staff, the housekeeping, the pool staff, you know, different people interacting with it. You need to kind of make a map of all the different people who might interact with your product along the sales channel. And it might be people who aren't decision makers, but when we're selling the business model, that hotel owner cares about his guests because those are his clients or her clients. And so even though we might not ever sell to that person in B2B land, we still need to be mindful of how our product or service impacts them, because then we can change our positioning and our language around it. And so some of the things that have been really cool to see, and I'm actually presenting a keynote on this in November for hotel properties in particular, but there's a lot of ways that we leave money on the table, and they're little things. And so I kind of have a list of examples of things, properties and businesses doing it really well, and properties that don't do it well. Okay. And so I've been traveling a lot, and so I've been staying in a lot of hotels. And have you ever used that app called Hotel Tonight?
No.
It's like if you need a last minute hotel, cheap. It's like the third party booking, but I have
Yes.
to go to Palm Springs a lot, and it's a long drive. And so I've been using Hotel Tonight, and I'll just bop around all these different hotels and try them out.
Mm-hmm.
$100 a night. Right. And so I check in a hotel. It's 9:30 at night, and I'm tired and I want to wake up early the next morning. And the gal says, okay, the pool opens at 6 a.m. Great. All right. I probably won't use the pool because it's a business trip, but thanks for letting me know. So next morning I wake up early. I walk to a Starbucks a mile away and make a phone call. I made a counterproductive walk. I walk back.
Yeah.
And as I'm checking out, I look around the corner and there's a coffee bar right around the corner from the front desk. And I walk over. I said, what time do you guys open? They said 6 o'clock. I'm like, I just walked 2 miles this morning to get a Starbucks when you were right here. The gal at the front desk could have said, hey, our coffee shop and our pool opens at 6 a.m. Just these little things. And so I think when you think about the different people who interact with your stuff, you want to make sure that you're offering things to people, because if they don't know it exists, how can they buy it?
That is a huge thing. That is a huge thing. And you're exactly right. We can overlook something which seems very minute, but it can be a big deal to our business.
Yeah. And I think that this applies everywhere. I mean, I was on a meeting earlier today and we had a certain time slot. And then for an extra 30 minutes, the team just received product information for 30 minutes. And at this point, I'm getting like a little spicy. Sarah comes out sometimes, not very often, but she does. And I'm getting irritated because I'm like, we're going 30 minutes over. Like, this is costing us money, because now instead of going out and making sales and responding to emails, we're giving 30 extra minutes we didn't allocate for.
Yes.
And I think that this happens a lot where people don't realize, they think, oh, I'm having such a great meeting. Oh, we talked for 2 hours. It's like, no, that person was too polite to tell you that you're costing their organization thousands of dollars because the team has to sit through this meeting. So like being mindful of time. If you're selling to an architecture firm and they bill $100 an hour, and then you have a lunch with 10 people, that your presentation costs that firm $1,000. So it's not a bad thing. They need to know this stuff usually, but you want to think, how am I making sure that there's an ROI from any type of meeting that I have? And this is like, I know we're going a lot of different directions here, but it all ties together in this concept of adding value and speaking business model. Yeah,
it's a great point, is the ROI for meetings. And part of it is stopping the meetings at the appropriate time. If you schedule for an hour, but you're done in 30 minutes, it means that you get 30 minutes of your day back. They get 30 minutes of their day back. Everybody wins. And that's a great point. You don't have to use that time to fill it in.
And if you're working with professionals, they probably have a hard stop, but now you kind of did yourself a disservice because you didn't leave time at the end to discuss next steps, to recap action items. And so it all ties together, and it takes a lot of practice, and this is something I've been doing for my whole career. So I'm well versed in it and I teach it, but it takes a lot of practice. And so I would just encourage anyone who wants to flex their business development muscles to really find ways to add value, but also making sure if you're respecting their time and business model, you're honoring that hard stop too.
Yeah, that's a great 2 things you said there. First of all, making sure that you're providing a good ROI on their time spent with you in the meetings. I think that's awesome. But and if you can stop earlier, you said if we all have back-to-back meetings, if we stop 10, 15 minutes earlier, we can finish up the meeting in an appropriate time, follow up questions, decide who's doing what are the next steps, and still get out of that meeting probably 10 minutes before the next meeting comes up. And you will leave a positive impression on whoever you're meeting with for none other than they gave me some time to be able to collect myself before I did something else, rather than boom, 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 boom. And they'll forget you, because as soon as they start that next meeting and things start to happen, they forgot what happened.
Yeah, especially if you're just filling their minds with product facts that just rolls off their brain. So,
Yeah.
and you're not giving them anything to hold on to. So that's why we got to weave in storytelling. We have to weave in how this product or service impacted their clients. And I had, some of the stuff that I do in my business, I have a sales program, but commercial construction takes a really long time to build buildings, right? And so it's a delayed gratification. I'm sure a lot of your clients listening have, long sales cycles. So sometimes it's hard to quantify, your team sales are going to increase by 20% if you hire Sarah. Like, I don't really have the hard data to do that because it requires, but if you can weave in anecdotes like, hey, I had a client who had a similar situation. Their team was responsible for business development, but they're very technical, or they're project managers. This isn't their core role, but they have to sell as part of their job. Then we can start pulling in stories of how, this person was able to, in conjunction with me, we put together a panel discussion, and now they're adding value because they're reaching out to their prospects to be on a panel that they're hosting. So now they're elevating that person's business model. And now we can build deeper relationships because I'm not pitching them products. And I think it's just all these different creative ways to add value. It takes practice, it takes trial and error, but you just got to start. And I think the action and execution, to your point earlier, Damon, of like ending the meeting early, the people who execute are the ones business professionals remember.
Yes. So you've been at your coaching now for a while. So it's 3 years. What do you love the most about it?
Now that I've been working with clients for a longer time period, I get to see the wins and like be part of the wins. So that's been very cool, because when you're first starting out, it's like you think it's good. You feel really confident it's good. It's worked for you before in corporate, but until you start to see how it gets integrated into another company or an individual or a team, and then you see them deploy it and have wins, that's really cool. And actually, Kurt was one of my first favorite wins when we were talking about ABAV years ago. You guys had me on manufacturing e-commerce. We were talking about ABAV, and Kurt shared a story of running a trade show in Buffalo. And he's thinking, how can I add value? And he sent out a Word document with all the great Mexican restaurants, Italian restaurants, everywhere to eat in Buffalo. We're going to Niagara Falls. And he told me later, he's like, I was Mr. Popular at that show. And we kept running into people at the restaurants we recommended. And the organizer came to thank him. And he wasn't sending out the typical, come visit the booth, see the new product, schedule an appointment, like everyone else. Like, you have to find ways to stand out from the noise. So hearing stories like that is super fulfilling, because it shows that it works, and it just helps people's businesses, which is what we're all about.
Yes. Well, and that too, I mean, it goes back to everything about your products, about your services that can really help them, and as them as people as well, right? Because I think that one of the things that, and I used to be this way a lot, is that if we're so focused on the product or the service that we provide, that we don't see the human interactions and what they're going through, even care about what they're going through, you miss a great opportunity. Because it could be that there's a connection between an event, between them and something, crazy good happening in their life, challenging happening in their life, that really helps you to build that relationship that is much deeper and much, I think, more important than the sale itself.
You hit the nail on the head right there, because if you connect as the people first, like the H2H, human to human first, the business stuff becomes so easy. And I think that we oftentimes go into situations thinking, how can this other person help me? And if you come from the ABAV mindset of how can I add value to them, it just makes it a lot more organic and more comfortable. And then people will work with people they like. And what's going to happen is you're going to find clients everywhere. Like I've met people on the chairlift. I need a patent lawyer for something. And I had this whole day at a museum on Saturday and we were in this little sketching group, and this gal that turned into my little friend in the group. Turns out she's a patent lawyer. We didn't figure it out till like 3 hours after us talking. And I said, actually, can I ask you some questions? So now I have a lawyer I need, but it happens all the time. I was at the pool the other day and chatted with the gal for an hour. Turns out she's a potential client, and you just never know. And I think that's what's really fun about it is you're not coming from, how can this person help me? How can I get what I want out of it?
Yes.
You're just connecting as humans, and the business happens organically. And that is like, what's so fun about this?
Yeah. And I think that is lost on a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And especially with salespeople that don't understand that if you focus on that, and you focus on that from the time you wake up and until the time you go to sleep, and when you're out networking, it's not, hey, I do this, but you're really just getting to know people. Your business will take care of itself. Like you said, it will take care of itself. And if it's not working, do more of that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Oh yeah. I think there's a book called Give and Take by Adam Grant, and he talks about like the givers, there's the givers, the takers, and the neutral people. And the givers some of them end up on bottom, because sometimes you have to, sometimes I'm guilty of this too, where I just give and give and give and give, and then I don't ask for anything.
Yeah.
But I know if I needed to ask for anything, I got a whole bunch of full bank accounts. Mm-hmm. And I think people in your example you just shared, they're trying to draw from an empty bank. So you're not going to get anywhere. And you might accidentally put negative bank deposits in that bank account. If you're just pitch slapping people, if you're just asking for things, you're getting negative deposits in the bank, which is even worse. And that's not what you want. So you just need to always be adding value and thinking about how you can help others, even if it's a book recommendation or a connection or a podcast episode. There's all these ways to add value. And if you have that handy, then it's, hey, Damon, let me grab your cell phone real quick and I'll text you that podcast episode we were discussing.
Yeah.
Oh, I have your phone number. It's not that hard. It's just, we have to be thinking about it and mindful of it.
Yes. And I mean, it's fun too. I mean, it's just it's fun. It's fun. And that's something that I think if we look at it that way and really embrace how much more fun it is just to be helping people. And I think, and just hit me, but I love being able to finish a meeting a little bit early. Right. So if you're going to finish 15, 20 minutes early, just ask people what's going on. How are things? And if you spend a few minutes on that always be adding value can come in so big.
Totally.
To end a meeting like that, where you say, well, I know somebody that had that happen before. Do you want me to figure out how they did it? And, or something like that, or this is something we've done that's been really enjoyable, or just whatever the ways you can help them in that part of their life or business, whatever it is that they can. I think that helps you to seal the deal and want them to and not fake, but real, and to be able to continue doing and building a relationship and working together.
It's so funny, Damon, because when I first started my business, it was all around like helping your team build relationships. And some of the VPs of sales I was talking to was like, there's the door, Sarah. We don't need that. That's a soft skill, and a part of it was me learning how to position it correctly.
Yeah.
Part of it. But at the same time, this was all before AI happened. So it's kind of funny to see how quickly things have changed. And really, the biggest competition we have is not the competing product or service. Our real competitor is the relationship that the competitor's salesperson has with our ideal prospect or client. So we're competing against competitive relationships. And your point, Damon, of just like asking these little icebreakers, like I was chasing the largest construction project in North America, and the executive vice president is now a good friend of mine. But at the time, he was really tough. He was the hardest guy I've ever had to sell to. And now that we're friends, I asked him, I said, what was up with that? You were so intimidating. And he says, well, Sarah, everyone in the world was trying to get on this project, and I had to develop a filter system.
Yeah.
because I can't field inbound vendor calls from the whole world who's trying to get on the largest project in North America. But I set up a meeting with him in Las Vegas and I gave the wrong address accidentally. And so I sent this guy and Vegas is not a easy place to jaunt around, and it was 100 degrees. So he shows up an hour and a half late to my meeting. He's pissed. I'm embarrassed, but I'm like, I'm not going to give any fluffy icebreakers, let's just get into this meeting. And so we did, and we all kind of calmed down. And then at the end, I had ordered all this food too, that like Vegas wanted to take away because it was before our window. And so we're kind of eating the food because I think he recognized, like, obviously it was a mistake, but still not the best first impression. And at the end, we're kind of snacking. We're all calmed down a little bit. And I said, so do you have any fun trips coming up? And he says, yeah, I'm going camping with my kids in the Poconos. And now all of a sudden it's like, we could talk about camping. We could talk about his kids. We could talk about the Poconos. Like, I threw out the bait and I got 3 different paths I could take it down. And now we became friends. But you just have to use some of these strategies and questions tactfully. But once you do it on a regular basis, it becomes very natural.
Yes. And it really is the feeling that people have when they leave.
Bingo.
That matters. It may not matter the most, but it is probably the most impactful. Big
time. And I think that's the thing. They don't remember all the facts and figures. They remember, like, is this someone I want to work with?
Mm-hmm. Boom. Right there. Is this someone I want to work with?
Yeah.
And that's the hard, back to the age to age. It just is always be adding value, putting things, in their perspective and really showing them how your product or service is going to help them make more money or save money. Awesome stuff, Sara. So thank you for being here once again. We're going to wrap up today, but I want you to leave us with one piece of advice, if you could, today.
Okay. Well, we talked about ABAV quite a bit, always be adding value. So I'm just going to put a pin in that. And then I think the other thing that I would really like to leave your audience with is this concept of take the time to really understand yourself. What are your core values? What are you passionate about? What are your strengths? What are you good at? I don't think we always take the time to sit and think about what makes us special. So I'd like to invite everyone to think about what makes you special. And then, what makes your company special, and from a business model standpoint, not a product feature standpoint. So how do you solve problems for your client? What are some of the wins that you can take ownership of? Because when you have all of those ingredients together, you can really show up as your authentic self and just be cool, be yourself. People want to work with real people. And sometimes when we get into business mode and sales mode, we try to be this person we think the other person wants them to be. And really, if you just own and embrace your authentic self, you give the other person permission to be their authentic selves. And that is what creates that instant connection. So just be cool, love yourself, get to know yourself more if you don't know it, and just show up authentically. And that's all it takes.
That's awesome. So Sara, if someone wants to reach out to you to talk about, helping their team build better relationships and really improve their sales performance, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'd love to chat. I have a 6-month and 12-month programs. We've had some really killer wins of teams, big and small. So it's been really fun to be a part of that and be part of those teams. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, Sara Murray, and my website is saramurray.com. And that's SARAMURRAY.com.
Nice. Well, thanks for being here today, Sara. Hang up. We're gonna wrap up offline. Hang out. We will wrap up offline. Couldn't even say it, but we will be back again next week. Thanks everyone for here. I saw some of those comments coming in. I see that we've got listeners out there that aren't commenting. Appreciate you always. Thanks for being here with us. We'll be back again. Thanks again, Sara.
Thank you.
All right.